What's going on, everybody? My name is C4. Welcome back to the channel, and today is the best Monday of the year to drop a mock draft, as the regular season has concluded last night, and we now know the draft order for the non-playoff teams, and all the fans of these teams are in mock draft season. So we're going to try to have a hellacious mock draft here today and make you feel a lot better about the future of your program. This is my third mock draft, so you can go check out the other two. Some of the cool things that I was kind of just looking back more recently at my last one, just to see, I always like to kind of take maybe players that are slightly out of the range from these sites. And it's kind of cool, like the players in my last mock draft that were like, oh my God, these are kind of reaches. Almost all those players have moved up in consensus rankings. And I'm not bragging. I was just a little early. That's all I'll say. It's a little early. And that is what we're going to do today. And hopefully find some absolute studs, some perfect fits for every single team. I took some notes so I could figure out what the team needs are for each individual team. I was scouring the subreddits of all the teams that didn't make the playoffs, kind of get vibe checks of who fans want. And without further ado, I'm going to make everybody upset. The Tennessee Titans at pick number 1. I think they can honestly try to shop this, but you're really only ever in a great position to shop this pick if there's like a quarterback, a consensus quarterback. And I don't think there is necessarily a consensus quarterback in this class that a team's going to want to overpay to get them. I think there's plenty of quarterbacks. I think if you look at all the top two, it would be really, really interesting if Drew Aller from Penn State declares. Because I think if he declares, which right now he is leaning going back to school, he's not available on this website. But I think if Penn State can go on a run, Penn State, even just make the natty, I think that if his agent is smart, he's going to go, hey, you work out, you're probably going to be the first quarterback off the board, ergo potentially the first overall pick. If that's not the case, I think Tennessee is clearly not happy with their quarterback situation. And if you're going with the quarterback that might fit Tennessee the most, and by that it also means the baggage of Shedeur Sanders and potentially having like an Eli Manning situation on your hands where he'll only play for specific... who wants to deal with that headache? So with that being said, at pick 1, I have them going with Cam Ward. Cam Ward is very interesting. The good of Cam Ward will absolutely translate in the NFL. The bad of Cam Ward is what makes him viral, where he just like stands in the pocket, half asleep, and makes a great throw. That absolutely will not translate to the NFL. It just won't. Even if he went behind like the Philadelphia Eagles or the Detroit Lions offensive line, good luck. It is not going to be sustainable. So for that, I do think there is a big question mark, but the good of Cam Ward certainly will translate to the NFL, and I think in the Tennessee Titans a little bit better of a fighting chance than what we've seen with the mistake-ridden career of Will Levis so far. The Cleveland Browns at pick number 2. I think this is an absolute situation where Coach Prime's going to veto this. Cleveland has not handled the quarterback's position right ever. And I think there will be absolutely some like, don't do it. Cleveland, don't do it. I know you already don't know what you're doing with Deshaun Watson, but don't do this. And I think Cleveland's absolutely proven that they can win with like a veteran quarterback. So I don't know if it's Kirk Cousins. I don't know, but I think that will be the plan for the Cleveland Browns to go with a veteran quarterback. Even though that's tough sell with Deshaun Watson's contract on the books, you would think from a salary cap standpoint, getting a young rookie contract quarterback is going to be the way to facilitate Deshaun's ugly contract. I think they find a way to make it happen with a veteran. So with that being said, at pick number 2, I'm going to go with Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle from Texas. The debate between Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell in regards to who's going to be the top tackle on the board, I think they are definitely the top 2. I also feel like Will Campbell, the kind of report out on him is potentially short arms, which short arms is oftentimes, if there's a tiebreaker, you go with the guy that might transition a little bit easier to pro tackle. And I mean, even with Banks, he's not a big guy. I think he's like 6'4", just under 6'5", so he's not like your prototypical 6'7", Joe Alt type tackle. But I think he's an outstanding player. I think the Cleveland Browns need tackle help in a big way. Jedrick Wills ain't it. DeJuan Jones did not pan out. Get a tackle, get a veteran quarterback, try to figure out and hopefully keep Myles Garrett. The New York Giants at pick 3, I think this is where Shedeur Sanders will be landing if he goes this high. I like Shedeur. I get why he gets so much hate. I get why he's a polarizing player. Like for me, if I was ranking all my players in the first round, I don't know if Shedeur's in my top 20. Quarterbacks go high. Like Bo Nix wasn't in my top 20, but I was like, yeah, that guy can play in the league. Quarterbacks just go high, and clearly the New York Giants are going to be in a situation where they need to consider a quarterback. I would say if I'm trying to take somewhat of a perspective from a Giants fan, I kind of would just almost side with the Browns. And like, is there a veteran we can go and get and punt quarterback till next year? Because I'm personally not in love with any quarterbacks unless Drew Aller declares. And even then, Drew Aller has his question marks, inconsistent player, while has the traits and tools that every franchise quarterback hungry team would like. But I think from the standpoint of like, if Giants are going to be hard pressing getting a quarterback, bad owner. So bad owner makes what potentially could be not a great decision. I think you have Brian Dable getting one more year. And if Brian Dable's getting one more year, I don't think he's going to, I think he's going to be like, all right, let me get this quarterback. I can work with Shedeur. All it takes is for Brian Dable to be like, I can work with this. And Shedeur is kind of the opposite of Danny Dimes, where I think Shedeur, in terms of like, his processing is good and bad, I feel like. I feel like he holds on the football way too long and eats up too many dead sacks. And if the processing is sped up a little bit. But I think there's another side. It was like he throws a great ball, man. He can read the defense well when it is on time. And if he can find that level of consistency, there's definitely a player there. And I think from a coach prime standpoint, New York's a big-time market. And, I mean, I think that's an interesting potential fit. While personally, if I'm a Giant fan, I think maybe not going quarterback could be best possible scenario. We have the New England Patriots at pick number 4. And I have them go get Abdul Carter from Penn State. I think once he tested the combine, everyone's going to go, oh, yeah. Like, he could be... I mean, Tennessee doesn't need an edge rusher. And I don't know if he's going to be my number 1 overall player. I'm leaning right now him as my top player in this class. Blue chip pass rusher. Just also kind of, he's Micah Parsons. I don't know if it'll be interesting to see because all these Penn State freaks test incredibly well. But he is if you're comping him, you're going to hope that he could potentially scratch the surface of what Micah Parsons is, which is an absolute game wrecker. I think that potential is there for the New England Patriots. Jacksonville at pick number 5. I'm going to have them select Travis Hunter. And I made this argument when they had the number 1 overall pick. They have an Iran by a wrestling promoter. And I think while Travis Hunter fills a need, what's going to happen? Are you going to play both? Play wide receiver, play corner? I think his best position will be corner the next level. But I think not only that, which is a need for the Jaguars, there's a gigantic marketability plus that you get surrounding Travis Hunter. I think the wrestling promoter and Tony Khan's going to be like, all things equal, Will Johnson's probably the better corner, probably the better corner prospect. Probably the better pick if you're hungry for a corner at pick 5. But I think it's close enough that Travis Hunter is going to be worth his weight in gold in merchandise sales. And I think that might work out for Jags. Now we have the Vegas Raiders at pick number 6. And here, we're going to have them grab McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. Big 6'5", jump ball ability, smooth, kind of looks like a Blade Runner when he's running out there. And I think you throw another team in the I don't know how many veteran quarterbacks are going to become available. But I think Vegas is another team, like they're not going to reach. You're not going to grab Milroe here. You're not going to grab Quinn Ewers. Maybe you wait on the come around in round 2, round 3. You look at Jackson Dart. You can look at Curtis Rourke. Like some of these guys later, I don't see Jalen Milroe going in the first round. I think the tools are there, sure, but you have such, like he's closer to, Joe Milton than he's not. And you see the struggles with Anthony Richardson. I think that's going to scare some teams off. Anthony Richardson from the Milroe situation. So if I'm the Raiders, I'm looking what else we got, and you can't go wrong with wide receiver. Pair that with Brock Bowers. Ooh, that could be a nice combination for a veteran rental quarterback. We have the Jets. I'm at pick number 7. I'm going to have them improve the offensive line here and get Will Campbell, debatably in the discussion for the top tackle, after getting the Penn State's tackle, Fashanu, last year. There you go. You got your tackles set, ready to go for whatever happens with that offense going forward. Who knows what's happening with Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. Honestly, I almost welcome that circus back for another year with the plan of, like, in the second round, you swing around and get a Ewers or a Milroe or a Dart. Get a developmental quarterback this year as well. But I think what you can get at pick 7 is kind of solidify that offensive line, which hasn't also really been that good this year. And I think there's too much question marks that I would say, what the hell, run it back one more year. But that's a lot easier for me to say as a non-Jets fan who has had to suffer through this year. Pick number 8, we have the Carolina Panthers, and I'm going to have them select Mason Graham, D-lineman from Michigan. I think a clear selection for the Panthers right now is just best D-line available. Got to improve that defense. Hey, it's nice, though, that you're picking a pick 8, and you're not like, hey, we need a quarterback. You feel pretty optimistic about the way Bryce Young finished the year, especially in the season finale against Atlanta. Against Philly, he was unreal. So you're starting to see flashes that he can kind of put it all together And with that, you're very optimistic that, hey, you feel we don't have to address the offense necessarily with a top 10 pick. Let's talk about the defense, which needs a lot of help. New Orleans at pick number 9. I'm not going to get Will Johnson, the corner for Michigan. You traded away Marshawn Lattimore. Didn't really have a successor in place. So you go get, fringe, probably fair to say, a blue chip corner in Will Johnson who's going to be ready to go. Now, maybe a little off the field. A lot of discussion about Michigan. Be like, oh, he quit on the team this year, yada, yada, yada. But, I don't know. I don't personally hold that against a player. If they do what's best for their interests going towards the league, especially if you're a blue chip top 10 pick like Will Johnson is. And that would be a great get for the Saints. Defense and secondary. Number 10 in the first round is the Chicago Bears. And I'm out of the Bears here. Select Cam Williams from Texas. Now, I'm calling him a lineman. He's like 340 pounds. Could be tackle. Could be guard. But the potential, I think, is off the chart. I think Texas had absolute studs that they could potentially be sending. I don't know how many. I think they're maybe even more so than Ohio State. Kind of looking at here, Ohio State, Texas, in this mock draft are sending the most players to the league. I think just when you're the Chicago Bears, you got to continue to figure out what the best combination is on that offensive line to protect Caleb Williams. Now, you're going to hope that the new head coach that comes in is going to be an offensive minded guy that can get it working. So I think from that standpoint, you should go with another tackle. I don't think, Darnell Wright could play guard, could play tackle. Yeah, the other dude at left tackle, Braxton Jones, move these guys around, can figure out the best combination. And I feel like you just kind of got to go with the best lineman on your board, which I have as Williams from Texas, which is a good problem to have. San Francisco at pick 11. That's weird to see them up this high. I'm going to have them select Nick Scarton, edge rusher from A&M. Very disappointing defensive front, even including Bosa this year. I think with how they are built, injuries aside, injuries suck. But I think with the offensive injuries and struggles there, I would have assumed that the Niners defense could have kept them in games more than they did this year. And I have buddies as a Niner fan that's just like, of course everyone sucks when you're down. Like Debo sucks, Bosa sucks. All these, Fred Warner's the only redeeming quality guy there. So I think get a little bit of pass rush help. Let's see if we can get someone else other than Nick Bosa that can get after the quarterback and Scout big time. He's like 280, jacked, should test very, very well, and likely will be part of a healthy pass rush rotation as a rookie. Dallas at pick 12. I know it's kind of a roll your eye, of course, pick, but I think Genty to Dallas. I wouldn't even do that. I'm an Eagle. I hate that. But I think someone like Jerry Jones, he's going to be the first guy to bite the bullet. And there are other running backs that I wouldn't be shocked. I think Omari Hampton is an incredible player out of North Carolina. Probably not first round, but I can see him going early in the second. I think there's going to be a run on running backs in the second round. Hampton's a beast. Johnson's a beast. Judkins a beast. Our boy Cam Scatbo, absolute beast. But Genty is just built completely different, and I think Jerry Jones is not only, from Zeke and how he values the running back, and always kind of has valued the running back. Seeing what Saquon Barkley did for the Philadelphia Eagles, I think he's going to go like, oh, we could do that. And let's bring in Genty, which would be a great weapon to help out CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott on that offense. The Miami Dolphins on the clock at pick number 13. They need to improve the offensive line, so rather than go good, Josh Simmons from Ohio State, who probably would have been a higher pick if he did not suffer a season-ending injury. Very, very promising offensive tackle, and I think the offensive line was just shambolic for the Dolphins. I think the trenches were shambolic for the Dolphins. And now you have out of the blue, they brought back their front office and coach, which pissed everyone off. Now you have Tyreek Hill who wants to trade. Things are not great, but I still think if you're viewing the Dolphins roster within a vacuum, the trenches is where they need to go. I think Simmons is the best trenchman available to improve their roster next season. The Indianapolis Colts at pick 14. I'm going to have them select Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. It's all about what you're looking for. I think Loveland is the better pure receiver. I think Warren is the more, he just does more. He can play a little Taysom Hill. He can block. He can line up in the backfield. He can catch. He gives you yak. He gives you jump ball ability. I would be interested to see who the better athlete is of those two. We'll get those RAS scores out here. But I think if you're the Colts, you're still trying to figure out that quarterback spot. You got to assume it's going to be Richardson. They're running it back with the same front office, same coaching staff. So if that's what you're doing, I kind of view this pick as like, who can help out Anthony Richardson? And I feel like at this spot at pick number 14, Tyler Warren will be that guy. Atlanta at pick number 15, the Falcons. I'm going to select Michael Williams, edge rusher from Georgia. I think for the Falcons, You have the defensive head coach. You want to continue to figure out that pass rush, which got a little bit better down the stretch, but still ultimately it just felt like that defense, it's too many shootouts. You got Michael Penix, who I think it was the right thing to give him the end of the season. It was close to almost go on a playoff run. But I think ultimately the inconsistency on the defensive side of the ball, you go with the best available player that can get after the quarterback. And I mean, you could view that honestly as Jalen Walker as well. I think it's going to be a Georgia Bulldog at this pick, but I think the versatility of Williams, where the Jalen Walker is, kind of that linebacker, edge rusher hybrid, which, I mean, you got a couple of those. Him and Jahad Campbell, I think you could also, they're listed as linebackers, but you could call them edge rushers. There's a lot of decisions to be made, but I think Mykel Williams with the height, weight, speed, upside, classic Georgia Bulldog freak athlete, I think that's a trendy pick for the Falcons at 15. All right, we got the Arizona Cardinals up next at number 16, and I'm going to have them go with the player that's probably going to light the combine by all accounts, and that is James Pierce Jr. Now, he's kind of one of those players that had a lot of hype coming this year, was a potential first overall pick, got double-teamed a lot, had a little bit of a down year at Tennessee. That kind of happens. There's usually one edge rusher a year that does that, and more often than not, they're fine when they get to the NFL because they're no longer going to be double-teamed. They're no longer going to be clearly the guy that opposing teams' offenses chip and put running back help and all that stuff. And I feel like he's been a little bit of a victim of that, and I think if you're the Arizona Cardinals, you need to continue to improve your pass rush, and no one else other than James Pierce at pick 16, I think, gives you that best opportunity. 17 with the Cincinnati Bengals. Their safeties have been dog crap, so they're going to get a blue-chip player in Malachi Starks. Geno Stone got paid decent money coming up for the Baltimore Ravens. He's like the lowest-graded safety, according to PFF. And you have Jordan Battle, who's also butt cheeks. So this is your classic Malachi Starks. Should probably be a top 10 pick, but because no one values safeties anymore, some team's going to get an absolute steal. And the Bengals, who is very, I don't want to say it's harshly, but it was a fun story, especially with Hard Knocks, kind of like, can they keep winning out? Can things fall their way to make a playoff run? Because Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, electrifying. Chase Brown, the Canadian, we love to see it. But ultimately, that defense was just a complete liability. And I think even regardless of the fact that their safety suck, the single best player on the defensive side of the ball that can improve the Bengals' defense in the mind of whoever becomes their new defensive coordinator, surprising firing there, is Malachi Starks at 17. Seattle at pick number 18. This one here is kind of an assumption pick. We're going to go with Ursery. And I'm going to classify him as a lineman for Minnesota because he's just another one of those like gigantic players that you could probably play plug and play anywhere. I'll be looking at right tackle. He could also play guard. That is kind of the consensus of what the Seattle Seahawks need, is to improve the offensive line outside of Charles Cross. I feel like Ursery gives you multiple opportunities, multiple different positions that he can eventually find a home at and start for you long term. Big time mauler in the run game as well. Number 19, we have the Houston Texans. And I am going with the pick that I've had them take the last couple of mock drafts. That is Walter Nolan, the former 5-star recruit out of Ole Miss. Just an interior defensive lineman that can give you some pressure. I feel like that is the perfect fit and a maybe missing piece for a DeMeco Ryans defense. You can move him all over the line. And I think with his high upside, a defensive coach that is known and proven to develop talent on the defensive side of the ball. You pair Nolan, you got Will Anderson, who's been an absolute beast. There are dudes there that can make plays. And that is a good get for the Houston Texans. Number 20, the Denver Broncos. So now we are going into, with Houston now and Denver, the playoff teams. And for the Denver Broncos, I pick number 20. Kind of thought about this, and I think ultimately Colson Loveland makes a lot of sense. Tyler Warren would be a perfect fit. I think maybe more so than Loveland, given the history of Sean Payton and how he utilizes his tight ends. But I think now that you got Bo Nix, and Bo Nix has been incredibly impressive, and Cortland Sutton's a dog, Marvin Mims in the slot is your speed guy, you're just missing like another safety net over the middle of the field, a reliable receiver. And Colson Loveland is, Fannin put up the numbers, but I would still make the argument Loveland is likely the best receiving tight end in this year's class, and that would be a big-time safety net get for the Denver Broncos offense. Pick 21, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'd rather them get Barron, the corner from Texas A. PFF darling had like a 90-plus score, and every time I watch Texas play, he is a baller. Now, it might not have desirable, I think he's 5'11", like 190, 195. He might not be your traditional height, weight, speed outside corner, but he's one of the best defensive football players, regardless of position in the country. And you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, I feel like stylistically gives you a little bit of that Carlton Davis on the outside. And I would play him on the outside. And then worst case scenario, you have to move him into the nickel. But very good defensive player and would be a great get for that Bucs secondary. Pittsburgh at pick number 22. I'm going to go get Luther Burden. Another player, very similar like James Pierce, was mocked a lot higher a couple months ago, but a down year at Mizzou. Like, he's one of those guys, like, if he would have somehow been able to declare last year, easy lock to go in the first round. Now he had a down year. And that, honestly, you know what also hurts? Because he was like the college football Debo. Everyone always says they're the college football Debo, but Luther Burden was the college football Debo. And then Debo kind of sucked for the 49ers, so that shine of that position-type hybrid weapon player is not as bright as it would have been a year ago when Debo was, one of the more prolific players in the league, featuring the Super Bowl. But I think with Luther Burden just coming off a down year at Mizzou, everyone kind of sucked at Mizzou. And I think once we get in the drills and testing, everyone's going to go, oh yeah, this guy is an absolute weapon, and a weapon that's not a nutcase. And I say that as someone that George Pickens was my favorite sleeper value wide receiver pick when he came out. And we still know that he's a head case. Someone like Luther Burden may give a little bit more stability at that wide receiver spot for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pick 23, we have the Rams. This is one of those ones where it's like, is Benjamin Morrison still going to be a first-round pick? It's kind of a discussion. 2 years ago, lock for like a top 10 pick. And then he's kind of just been like pretty good. Not elite, not lockdown, inconsistent play here or there, but he's height, weight, speed. He's built in a lab like a lockdown first-round pick at corner. And I think if he tests well, all it's going to take is a team that, honestly, for the Rams, they've not invested a lot of high picks in their DBs, which is probably why they need one. But they've got serviceable play out of players that have like an ounce of the talent that Morrison has. So I would trust that the Rams would be able to develop him and make him reach the potential that we saw a couple years ago at Notre Dame for Morrison as an outside corner. Green Bay at pick number 24. I'm going to have them get Jalen Walker, edge rusher from Georgia. Now, he's kind of like one of those hybrids, tweeners, but ultimately I think his best bet in the NFL is going to be getting after the quarterback. And I think from what I've read about most Packers, corner would be a need, but you're kind of reaching right now unless Ravel can test. He's coming out the ACL, and he tests very, very well because with the small school success of Quinyon Mitchell, that's certainly helping his stock. But if you're not going corner, it seems like they want to add to the edge rush rotation. Mike Green's a big PFF darling, put up big-time numbers as a redshirt sophomore for Marshall. Uman Malayan, another guy, I mean, personally not a big fan because of what he did with Florida, but he's a good player. But I think you're going to see Jalen Walker be one of those classic, he's not Nolan Smith, but probably test very, very well and be viewed as like a project edge rusher long-term, and that could be intriguing for the Packers at 24. 25, we have the LA Chargers. I'll be honest, this was out of all the picks, the Chargers, and once you get to it with the Bills, were like the only two that was like, I'm not 100% sure. I'm having to go with Kenneth Grant on the D-line. And this is going to be a little bit of like, oh, let's just have Harbaugh get a Michigan guy. But I mean, if you're the Chargers, like there's no tight ends at wide receiver, like Ibuka's a slot. So you could look at Bond or like Trey Harris. I saw a mock draft that had Trey Harris there. He's a big-time producer in the SEC, but like, is he for sure going to be a lock to go in the first round? Is that a little bit of a reach? Chargers could go running back, like a Marion Hampton would be but like, again, I feel like you can probably wait to the second round. That is where the real value is going to be in the running back spot. But if you're worried that you're not going to, your guy's not going to fall to your second round, you can get him at 25, and then you get the rookie option on a running back, which is always valuable. Edge rush help, but like, it's one of those like Landon Jackson, maybe. It was between Grant and Jackson, and I kind of just went with like, you could always use a D-tackle. Putafor has been great, but isn't he in a contract year? He's going to cash out. He's one of the best D-tackles in the league this year. So in case they can't re-sign him, I think someone like Kenneth Grant makes sense. If not, my pivot pick here would be Landon Jackson, as it looks like Khalil Mack will hit the open market. Now we have the Commanders at pick number 26, and I'm going to have them get Emeka Egbuka, slot wide receiver from Ohio State, kind of missing piece on that offensive side of the ball. You've had like Zacchaeus and Crowder and like veteran rentals in that slot, but I think a long-term slot that can grow and develop with Scary Terry and Jaden Daniels would be best case scenario. I think that's a home run pick for the Commanders at pick 26. Baltimore at pick 27, and I'm going to have them grab a guard here in Tyler Booker, the gigantic human being at LA. He's like 6'6", 350. He's like a better version of that filet guy. And I think interior offensive line is a big-time need for the Baltimore Ravens, and Booker is pro-ready to start day one. Minnesota at pick number 28, and I'm going to have them get Tyleik Williams, D-lineman from Ohio State. Seeing like kind of what the Viking fans are leaning for this draft. Defensive lineman, interior guy that can get after the quarterback. Harrison Phillips is solid team captain, yeah. But Tyleik Williams is like 325 and can rush the passer from the inside. and he's one of your classic. He's probably got to test pretty well for a 320-pounder. There you go. Interior pass rush help for the Minnesota Vikings. Pick number 29, we have the Buffalo Bills, and I'm having them get Nick Emmanwori, the safety linebacker hybrid from South Carolina. Safety, I think, is a need. I think he's going to test well. He's like 225, and the word on the streets like he could run low 4.4s. So all it's going to take is one team to fall in love with him, and I think Buffalo values safety. They've had very long-term consistent safety play with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer for years. Now that kind of unraveled as they got older and they had different decisions to make roster-wise. I think going back and valuing that safety position for someone like Emmanwori, who can also play in the nickel on rundowns and in the box as like a linebacker hybrid, I think there's a lot of value to the versatility of Emmanwori, and I think you could get a lot of use out of him if you are Sean McDermott. Now we have at pick 30, my beloved Philadelphia Eagles. I hate the board. This is like worst thing when I do mock drafts and Phillies at the end because I take a lot of my favorite guys and they don't fall to the Eagles. So in this situation, I have them going Shamar Stewart, the defensive lineman from A&M. Pass rusher, he's 290. He's a hybrid. I think ultimately the versatility of how he can play at different spots on Vic Fangio's front is intriguing. Also, I think Milton Williams likely cashes out in free agency elsewhere, and he's pretty much your Milton Williams replacement. Kansas City at pick 31, I'm going to have them go and improve the offensive line and get five-star recruit Josh Connerly at tackle. I think tackle's still the biggest need. You got to get rid of the false start machine. You got Suamadia, who's a developmental. I assume he's probably going to be your left tackle of the future. But I think adding stability and getting two young developmental tackles that long-term can play and start and be the safeguards on the outside to help protect Patrick Mahomes. It's never a bad fit for 31 that late in the first round, getting a guy that's a five-star talent. And finishing at pick 32 with the Detroit Lions, I'm going to have them get Jahad Campbell. Again, says linebacker, but a lot of people project him to eventually be a pass rusher. Hybrid pass rusher. I kind of think Zach Bond for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think pass rush is a big need. And kind of just looking at all the players available on the defensive side of the ball, who could most help the Detroit Lions pass rush this year and in the next couple years? And from my opinion, I think it's a big-time athlete like Jahad Campbell who's going to need some refining. But I think early on, you can have him kind of rotate in and out of that pass rush. You're going to get a healthy Aiden Hutchinson. Don't need to worry about it too much. And that's kind of why. So ultimately, had to make a couple assumptions, had to make a couple projections for how I think players might be used differently in the NFL than they are currently in college. Like I said, Jahad Campbell down there, going to the Detroit Lions. Like, I think he'll be an edge rusher, kind of hybrid in the next level. I think Emmanwori is going to be a versatile piece, chess piece, not just a safety. I think you look at Jalen Walker to the Green Bay Packers, again, more of a hybrid utility type piece. Irsay going to the Seahawks at 18. That's like more so protecting him to potentially move inside and be a guard and interior lineman at the next level. But ultimately, I feel pretty good about this mock draft for having the Titans not trade out, not have really any trades going on in the first round. But I'd love to hear what you guys think about this mock draft in the comment section below. Do you like my pick for your team? Do you despise my pick for your team? Please let me know in the comment section below. As always, your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button as draft content will be coming all season long. I've been reading all the feedback, and that is some of the videos you guys want to see more of on the channel. So we're going to get back into that rhythm. But that will do it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with a new college football 25 rebuild of the Temple Owls. You're not going to want to miss it. Until that time, it's your boy C4 saying peace out, love ya. Have a good one.